don't?
No, you don't.
Really? Oh, I do to myself.
Okay, I'm going to record what I have to say today for the benefit of the two teams who are not here because they're out meeting with clients. So, hope your meeting is going well. 4, 5 over here. Over here. I am putting one of these for each member of the teams who are not here in the little mailbox over there. Between this and teaching my online class, it's almost like I'm teaching and there's nobody or very few people around. So, but things are changing in higher ed. Okay, so what you have to think about now is where do we go from here? Because everybody's going to be doing a little bit of revision on their proposals with suggestions that I make based on my reading of the proposals. But then in addition to that, you're revising your proposals anyway because the proposal is now morphing into the final campaign book. So instead of a proposal talking about what we're going to do while you're doing it now, you're going to start changing that document into what we have done. And so now it's kind of like you've got 3 streams of things going on. You've got the actual actions that you're taking on behalf of your client. You've got the revision of the proposal on the stuff that I said you needed to beef up. And then you've also got the revision of the proposal, turning it into the final campaign book. So a lot of things happening all at once. So the next few weeks will be really busy. So on the suggestions for revision, I'll put one of these over there too. The suggestions for revision, here are things that I would do if I were you. First, get a copy of the campaign structure document, which I've got for you. We'll come back to that in a minute. Because you want to go through each item in that final campaign book structure to see exactly what we're looking for. And on 2 on this thing are some of those things that we're talking about. So let's just grab the campaign final report structure document and I'll talk you through it. And we will come back to this again later in the semester, but just now as a preview of where you're headed. So at the beginning of your final campaign report structure document, there's going to be some things that you didn't have at the beginning of your proposal. The letter of transmittal is the first one. It's a 1-page letter thanking the client for allowing us to do business with them. Then after that is the title page. Then after that is an executive summary. And the executive summary is in 1 page, usually, and it doesn't usually fill the whole page, it's probably 200 words or so. What is the totality of this project, including the client, the consultation, the strategy, the methods, the results, and the assessment of success? Bullet points are okay, but the executive summary is literally what the executive would read if he or she had 30 seconds. Got it. And they know exactly what you did. So the executive summary is probably going to be one of the last things that you do because it's going to incorporate all those things, all those summary parts. You could certainly start working on it earlier if you want to, but it's probably going to be one of the last things that you do. And then you'll have a table of contents, a 1-page listing of the chapters and the appendices, so that if the client wanted to flip through the report and go to a particular page, they could do that. So that beginning part of the final campaign book lays out everything that is to follow. Chapter 1, and what I recommend you do when you start actually writing this and organizing this, just follow the bullet points and just answer each one before you move on. And don't feel like you have to answer with a lot of text. Go here. Let's go back up here. Way back up here at the top. Where was Where is it? Ah, campaign book samples. Let me show you. Open it.
That was good.
Yeah, I mean, what I like about this one is it's really well illustrated, and now it doesn't follow our format, but it's real simple on the title page with the contents, and even on like background. I think you could describe your client's situation in not a whole lot more than that, if you are really parsimonious with the sentences. So, as you start writing this, and there are some elements of this you could immediately begin putting together. When you read through this, there's no fat in here. Every sentence gives you an important fact or a reference support, usually and a reference support, and then it moves on. So as you put yours together, don't think that just because there's a lot of bullet points that it has to be lengthy. I would much rather have it be less lengthy, and the client would too, because they want to just read through this thing and not have a lot of stuff in there. So go through this document, especially on chapter 1, and just go bullet point by bullet point. What are we looking for here? And then order those sentences in that first chapter so that you cut out any fat and just get right to the story. I also like the idea in here when they get down to, now I asked students in the past what they thought about this, and a lot of people like the illustrations, and there have been some students in the past who said they very much dislike the illustrations, particularly that one, because it suggests that senior citizens are violent. Okay, different perceptions. I don't take it that way, but this is all done to be kind of light and humorous. But I like the way. Results. Tables in here. Yes, there we go. That kind of thing. If you can find a way to put some of your results in tables or in a pie chart, I got no problem with that. And that can visually help tell the story without needing a lot of narrative along with it. So I'm absolutely okay with that. And as we move on through the semester, if you have sections of this put together that you would like me to look at, even in draft form, absolutely, I'm happy to do that, because feedback from me as you go through putting this together will help you stay on track. That over there, let's do this. These are highly professional production techniques here. Okay. CBS started this way. Okay, keep this in mind as you need to document the claims that you're making. You guys were really good. You had a lot of claims to present about diabetes and OC and the languages people speak and that kind of thing. I think you did a really good job at that. Really nice. So it's important for us to tell in the written book and in the presentation how you know what you say is true. One thing that you did in your presentation that you don't have to do is you start out talking about, and you said, as told to us by such and such, like Barry told you something, and you don't need to do that in the final presentation. We will accept that you know what you're talking about.
Okay.
So that's a place where you can cut time out of your presentation in the future.
Okay.
We'll just stipulate that you know. So, but keep in mind, how do you know what you say is true? So claims like the client's social media are not effective. Well, if you don't back that up with a source or a reference or authority or whatever term you want to use, how do we know that's actually the case? Or is it just you saying you don't like the color? So we need to have by what measure and who evaluates effectiveness. Oh, okay, we looked at this website. This website is an expert site that talks about what makes an effective web page, and that's okay.
So I know you said we wouldn't have to reference Barry again, but
would we still want to do like what Julian did and say, like with all the stats and stuff, and still say according to so-and-so, or no?
We can say the client presented us with these statistics.
But we
Yeah, okay, so then you can just make a general statement. We did extensive research, we came up with 25 different reference items we're giving to the client. I mean, you don't have to, you can let us know that you did research without actually identifying what the research was that you found or used.
We don't have to like cite it during our presentation?
You don't have to cite it during the presentation, no.
Because it's all in our research.
Yes, yes. And so as long as you give an indication during the presentation that you've got that, you don't have to identify it by name. That's okay. Unlike this one, the website is poorly designed, okay? If you don't have that support for that claim, then it becomes just your opinion. And I may have mentioned this before, but almost every semester, the agency team that comes in to work on our agency social media, they don't like what the team from the previous semester did. Well, the team from the previous semester thought it was just fine. So, every team that comes in has a different opinion on stuff, and that's why I say, well, don't tell me it's poorly designed, tell me why it's poorly designed, who is the expert that says that, link it to some kind of objective model or objective statement or something, so it's not just your opinion. We can improve whatever output by this number. Well, who picked the target number and how reliable is it? So that's something you need to think about. Otherwise, it's just a guess. Our strategy is whatever. I like the way in your presentation you specifically identified what your strategy was and why. That's really good. That's what we want to see happen. At first I didn't see it, but then I kept reading the slide and it's at the 2 bullet points at the bottom. Got it. So we're good. These people will, when you're talking about what people will do as a result of social media, people will, do whatever based on this. And then I go, how do you know, or are you just guessing? Now, one thing that you did say that was kind of just a little bit on the edge, you said if we create these social media, the social media will in turn generate buzz in the community. And I'm kind of like, I would say it, we're going to create this social media which will have the potential to generate buzz. We'll have the structure to generate buzz. The foundation will be there, but you can't really say it's going to generate buzz. Yeah, you can't say that. So you're kind of right and kind of not right. So look for ways to phrase these things both in your presentation and in the book that you're not going out on a limb making a claim that you can't make based on the evidence that you've got. Because our agency has Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. We have 4 platforms, which ought to be a lot to generate buzz. But there's not a whole lot of buzz being generated out there. And that's because people don't know in large numbers to go to those sites. They don't know in large numbers to go to those social media platforms, and there's not a whole lot of engagement there happening even if they went there. So it takes more than just a platform to generate buzz. So last one here, if you can't document the veracity of your claims, veracity meaning conforming to facts, you are guessing, assuming, hoping, wishing, imagining, thinking big, whatever. So just make sure that as you go on with your work and as you start thinking about how it's all going to come together, if you make a claim, you got to be able to back it up. Now there are some ways where you can kind of get out of this. You guys, you can say, we'll be successful if 25 people attend. You didn't just pick that number out of the air. I said that number. So you can say, client is happy with 25 people, and you're off the hook. There are other ways you can say things. We are setting up this particular social media account because it appears to be commonly used by many nonprofit organizations. Then you're off the hook. The it appears thing tells me you've looked at the websites of other nonprofits and you found, they all have Instagram, so you can argue that we're setting up Instagram because it appears to be well used by many nonprofits, and you're off the hook. So, what you don't want to do is just get out there on the limb and say that you're doing this because it's the right thing to do, and there's no support for why it's the right thing to do, other than you seem to think it's the right thing to do. So I want to back you off the limb and closer to the trunk of the tree, so that if you say something is the right thing to do, you've got more support for it. Let's see what else we need to talk about in here. So anyway, like I said in the other handout, if you just look at each chapter individually and follow those bullet points and don't feel like you've got to write a ton of stuff in there, because when I review the final books, I don't care how many pages are in it. That doesn't matter at all. We've had some really excellent final campaign books that were in the 20-page range. They weren't very big. And we've also had some really mediocre books that were enormous. One of the biggest campaign books I ever got one time was in a 3-ring binder. I mean, it was like enormous, because they felt like they had to print off everything, and the appendix was like that much of it. They just printed everything, and it was written in a way that was redundant and wordy, and they were repeating themselves again and again and again. So they didn't need to do all that much. I love page turners. I like a campaign book that I can just go, yeah, I get it, yeah, got it, and I'm flipping through, because if I don't have any questions as we're going along, that means you're headed in absolutely the right direction. When there's a problem is when I read something and I go, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. Now I got to go back and find it again, and I can't find it there, and I got to go forward, and then that causes a problem. So the number of pages you have doesn't matter at all. So at the end of the book, outcomes and measurement, you've got those now, but you don't really know. You're kind of guessing at this point what about outcomes and measurement, and that's all right. That's all right, because in the proposal stage, you'll be that way. But in the final campaign book, you will have absolutes for outcomes and measurement. Just remember to keep those separate. The outcomes is what happened, and the measurement is how you know it was successful. Probably every campaign by the end will have success measures that they hadn't planned on. Fancy production. You'll have success measures you didn't count on. And you may have things that worked against you that you didn't count on, and maybe you want to talk about them, and outcomes, that's okay too. Outcomes doesn't have to be all good stuff. Sometimes the oops moments that you have, you can talk about in outcomes, and you talk about how you corrected them. You had an oops moment, something unexpected happened, how you fixed it. Then at the end of the book, you've got the references. I'm looking for somewhere in the 20 range in there. Don't forget some concept references. You guys were good on the concept references. That's something we need to know. Why are you doing this? Why is this conceptually the right thing to do for the client? You can use examples of past campaigns or events done for similar clients. If you're having trouble with that kind of stuff, let me know and I'll help you out. Client services agreement is going to go in there. And then the appendix, any work samples referred to elsewhere, if they're too big to put in the chapter itself, put in the appendix. So like your, maybe the structure, maybe your internship position description, put that in the appendix. That's the kind of thing that will go in. And in your chapter, you can say, we created an internship description, it's in the appendix. Then copies. One spiral-bound copy of the book goes to the client, and we have a spiral binder, it's around here somewhere, where you'll actually do a spiral-bound copy for the client. One spiral-bound copy of the book comes to me, and then you put one electronic copy of the book as a PDF file in Google Drive.
So since you're technically our client, you just have to.
Just one for me, since I'm your client. Yep. And then, just a reminder too, at the end of the semester, there will be 2 online evaluations that you will do. Now, we're going to have a midterm evaluation coming up soon. I'll talk more about that when that comes up. But you will have a final team member evaluation where you'll evaluate everybody on your team. And then you'll also have the reflection survey. And the reflection survey is me getting information from you about the experience of the agency. How did it go here? What could we do differently? What could we do to improve? It's that kind of thing. Many of the changes that we've made in the agency over the years came as the result of the reflection survey and students talking about what happened in here. Next class meeting, Thursday, I'll talk a little bit about the reflection survey and some interesting data that we've gathered from the reflection survey results in regard to soft skills and hard skills, and what students have said about their learning as they completed the agency experience. So we'll talk a bit more about that on Thursday. For now, do you have any questions for me about revisions and moving forward? You're going to have a discussion with me in a minute. You guys, and you're going to have a discussion with me too in a few minutes. So I'm going to talk with you guys too. Do you have any questions, other teams? I don't hear anything.
Where are they?
Where are, yeah, Atomic Ballroom is at the Atomic Ballroom, and COMM Scholarships and Awards is in a meeting with faculty and staff in the department.